Captain Vimes looked at the debris scattered across the courtyard from a hole in one of the ground floor rooms. All the surrounding windows had broken, and there was a lot of glass underfoot. Mirror glass. Of course, assassins were notoriously vain, but mirrors would be in rooms, wouldn't they? You wouldn't expect a lot of glass outside. Glass got blown in, not out. He saw Lance Constable Cuddy bend down and pick up a couple of pulleys attached to a piece of rope which was burnt at one end. There was a rectangle of card in the debris. The hairs on the back of Vimes' hand prickled. He sniffed rankness in the air. Vimes would be the first to admit that he wasn't a good copper, but he'd probably be spared the chore because lots of other people would happily admit it for him. There was a certain core of stubborn, bloody-mindedness there which upset important people, and anyone who upsets important people is automatically not a good copper. But he developed instincts. You couldn't live on the streets of a city all your life without them. In the same way that the whole jungle subtly changes at the distant approach of the hunter, there was an alteration in the feel of the city. There was something happening here, something wrong, and he couldn't quite see what it was. He started to reach down. "What is the meaning of this?" Vimes straightened up. He did not turn around. "Sergeant Colin, I want you to go back to the watch house with Nobby and Detritus," he said. "Corporal Carrot and Lance Constable Cuddy, you stay with me." "Yes, sir," said Sergeant Colin, stamping heavily and ripping off a smart salute to annoy the assassins. Vimes acknowledged it. Then he turned around. "Ah, Dr. Cruces," he said. The master of assassins was white with rage, contrasting nicely with the extreme black of his clothing. "No one sent for you," he said. "What gives you the right to be here, Mr. Policeman, walking around as if you owned the place?" Vimes paused, his heart singing. He savored the moment. He'd like to take this moment and press it carefully in a big book, so that when he was old he could take it out occasionally and remember it. He reached into his breastplate and pulled out the lawyer's letter. "Well, if you would like the most fundamental reason," he said, "it is because I rather think I do. A man can be defined by the things he hates. There were quite a lot of things that Captain Vimes hated. Assassins were near the top of the list, just after kings and the undead. He had to allow, though, that Dr. Cruces recovered very quickly. He didn't explode when he read the letter, or argue or claim it was a forgery. He simply folded it, handed it back, and said coldly, 'I see. The freehold, at least.' 'Quite so. Could you tell me what has been happening, please?' He was aware of other senior assassins entering the courtyard through the hole in the wall. They were carefully looking at the debris. Dr. Cruces hesitated for a moment. "Fireworks," he said. "What happened," said Gaspode, "was that someone put a dragon in a box right up against the wall inside the courtyard, right? And then they went and hid behind one of the statues and pulled a string, and next minute, bang!" "Bang?" "That's right. Then our friend nips into the hole for a few seconds, right? Comes out again, trots around the courtyard, and next minute there's assassins everywhere, and he's among them. What the hell? Another man in black. No one notices, see?" "You mean he's still in there?" "How do I know? Hoods and cloaks, everyone in black." "How come you were able to see this?" "Oh, I always nip into the Assassin's Guild on Wednesday night. Mixed grill night, see?" Gaspode sighed at Angua's blank expression. "The cook always does a mixed grill of a Wednesday night. No one ever eats the black pudding. So it's round the kitchen, see? Woof woof, beg beg. Who's a good boy then? Look at the little bugger. He looks as though he understands every word I'm saying. Let's see what we've got here for a good doggy." He looked embarrassed for a moment. "Pride is all very well, but a sausage is a sausage," he said. "Fireworks?" said Vimes. Dr. Cruces looked like a man grasping a floating log in a choppy sea. "Yes, fireworks, yes, for Founders' Day. Unfortunately, someone threw away a lighted match which ignited the box." Dr. Cruces suddenly smiled. "My dear Captain Vimes," he said, clapping his hands, "much as I appreciate your concern, I really—" "They were stored in that room over there?" said Vimes. "Yes, but that's of no account—" Vimes crossed to the hole in the wall and peered inside. A couple of assassins glanced at Dr. Cruces and reached nonchalantly towards various areas of their clothing. He shook his head. His caution might have had something to do with the way Carrot put his hand on the hilt of his sword, but it could also have been because assassins did have a certain code after all. It was dishonorable to kill someone if you weren't being paid. "It seems to be some kind of museum," said Vimes. "Guild memorabilia, that sort of thing?"
"Yes, exactly. Odds and ends. You know how they mount up over the years."
"Oh. Well, that all seems to be in order," said Vimes. "Sorry to have troubled you, Doctor. I will be going. I hope I have not inconvenienced you in any way."
"Oh, of course not. Glad to have been able to put your mind at ease."
They were ushered gently yet firmly towards the gateway. "I should clean up this glass," said Captain Vimes, glancing at the debris again. "Someone could hurt themselves, all this glass lying around. Wouldn't like to see one of your people get hurt."
"We shall be doing it right this minute, Captain," said Dr. Cruces.
Good. Thank you very much." Captain Vimes paused at the doorway, and then thumped the palm of his hand on his forehead. Sorry, excuse me, mind like a sieve these days. What was it you said was stolen?" Not a muscle, not a sinew moved on Dr. Cruces' face.
"I didn't say anything was stolen, Captain Vimes."
Vimes gaped at him for a moment. "Right, sorry, of course you didn't. Apologies. Work getting on top of me, I expect. I'll be going then." The door slammed in his face. "Right," said Vimes. "Captain, why—" Garrett began. Vimes held up a hand. "That wraps it up then," he said, slightly louder than necessary. "Nothing to worry about. Let's get back to the yard. Where's Lance Constable What's-Her-Name?" "Here, Captain," said Angua, stepping out of the alley. "Hiding, eh? And what's that?"
"Woof woof, whine whine."
"It's a little dog, Captain." "Good grief." The clang of the big corroded inhumation bell echoed through the Assassin's Guild. Black-clad figures came running from all directions, pushing and shoving in their haste to get to the courtyard. The guild council assembled hurriedly outside Dr. Cruces' office. His deputy, Mr. Downey, knocked tentatively at the door.
"Come."
The council filed in. Cruces' office was the biggest room in the building. It always seemed wrong to visitors that the Assassin's Guild had such light, airy, well-designed premises, more like the premises of a gentleman's club than a building where death was plotted on a daily basis. Cheery sporting prints lined the walls, although the quarry was not, when you looked closely, stags or foxes. There were also group etchings, and more recently, newfangled iconographs, of the guild. Rows of smiling faces on black-clad bodies, and the youngest members sitting cross-legged in front, one of them making a face. There's always one. Down one side of the room was the big mahogany table where the elders of the guild sat in weekly session. The other side of the room held Cruces' private library and a small workbench. Above the bench was an apothecary cabinet made up of hundreds of little drawers. The names on the drawer labels were in Assassin's Code, but visitors from outside the guild were generally sufficiently unnerved not to accept a drink. 4 pillars of black granite held up the ceiling. They had been carved with the names of noted assassins from history. Cruces had his desk 4 square between them. He was standing behind it, his expression almost as wooden as the desk.
"I want a roll call," he snapped. "Has anyone left the guild?"
"No, sir. The guards on the roof in Filigree Street say no one came in or went out, sir."
"And who's watching them?"
"We're watching one another, sir."
Very well. Listen carefully. I want the mess cleaned up. If anyone needs to go outside the building, I want everyone watched. And then the guild is going to be searched from top to bottom. Do you understand?"
"What for, Doctor?" said a junior lecturer in poisons.
"For anything that is hidden. If you find anything and you don't know what it is, send for a council member immediately, and don't touch it."
"But, Doctor, all sorts of things are hidden."
"This will be different. Do you understand?"
"No, sir."
"Good. And no one is to speak to the wretched watch about this. You, boy, bring me my hat."
Dr. Cruces sighed.
"I suppose I shall have to go and tell the patrician."
"Hard luck, sir." Elsewhere, The captain didn't say anything until they were crossing the brass bridge. "Now then, Corporal Carrot," he said. "You know how I've always told you how observation is important?" "Yes, Captain. I've always paid careful attention to your remarks on the subject." "So, what did you observe?" "Someone smashed a mirror. Everyone knows assassins like mirrors. But if it was a museum, why was there a mirror there?"
"Please, sir."
"Who said that?"
"Down here, sir. Lance Constable Cuddy."
"Oh, yes?"
"I know a bit about fireworks, sir. There's a smell you get after fireworks. Didn't smell it, sir. Smelled something else."
"Well, smelled, Cuddy."
"And there were bits of burnt rope and pulleys."
"I smell dragon," said Vimes. "Sure, Captain?" "Trust me," Vimes grimaced. If you spent any time in Lady Ramkin's company, you soon found out what dragons smelt like. If something put its head in your lap while you were dining, you said nothing. You just kept passing it tidbits and hoped like hell it didn't hiccup. "There was a glass case in that room," he said. "It was smashed open. Something was stolen. There was a bit of card in the dust, but someone must have pinched it while old Cruces was talking to me. I'd give $100 to know what it said." "Why, Captain?" said Corporal Carrot. "Because that bastard Cruces doesn't want me to know." "I know what could have blown the hole open," said Angua. "What?" "An exploding dragon." They walked in stunned silence. "That could do it, sir," said Carrot loyally. "The little devils go bang at the drop of a helmet." "Dragon," muttered Vimes. "What makes you think it was a dragon, Lance Constable Angua?" Angua hesitated. Because a dog told me was not, she judged, a career-advancing thing to say at this point. "Woman's intuition?" she suggested. "I suppose," said Vimes, "you wouldn't hazard an intuitive guess as to what was stolen." Angua shrugged. Carrot noticed how interestingly her chest moved. "Something the assassins wanted to keep where they could look at it?" she said. "Oh, yes," said Vimes. "I suppose next you tell me the dog saw it all."
"Woof?"
Elsewhere, Edward Dieth drew the curtains, bolted the door, and leaned on it. It had been so easy. He'd put the bundle on the table. It was thin and about 4 feet long. He unwrapped it carefully, and there it was. It looked pretty much like the drawing. Typical of the man, a whole page full of meticulous drawings of crossbows, and this in the margin, as though it hardly mattered. It was so simple. Why hide it away? Probably because people were afraid. People were always afraid of power. It made them nervous. Edward picked it up, cradled it for a while, and found that it seemed to fit his arm and shoulder very snugly. "You're mine." And that, more or less, was the end of Edward Dieth. Something continued for a while, but what it was, and how it thought, wasn't entirely human.